Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we are cracking open what is, honestly, the ultimate archaeological cold case. We're talking about a teenager, the absolute last heir of a fabulously wealthy and powerful dynasty whose sudden death has sparked thousands of years of wild speculation. I am, of course, talking about King Tutankhamun. Our mission today? We're going to look at how modern forensic science is attempting to finally, once and for all, answer the lingering questions surrounding his mysterious demise.
To really wrap our heads around this story, we have to plunge right into a very specific, honestly, kind of eerie night. Okay, picture this. It's January 5th, 2005. Dark-bellied clouds are scudding across the desert sky, basically veiling the stars in this casket gray color. An angry wind is whipping up these ghostly dust devils as a team of scientists drags a $1 million portable CT scanner straight into the unforgiving Egyptian desert. Their goal is massive, to probe the medical mysteries of a young ruler who has been dead for more than 3,300 years. Okay, let's dive into the geographical setting for all this, because it's just perfect. Deep within the Valley of the Kings. All afternoon on that fateful day in 2005, a line of tourists had actually descended into the cramped, rock-cut tomb sitting 26 feet underground just to pay their respects. They gazed at the murals, they peered at Tut's gilded face on the outer coffin lid, and naturally, they whispered about the infamous pharaoh's curse. I mean, it is the absolute perfect atmospheric backdrop for a scientific investigation unlike any other. And here he is, the subject of our investigation, this boyish pharaoh. He was just a teenager when he died, yet he was the final ruler in a family line that had controlled Egypt and its entire empire for centuries. Because he was laid to rest absolutely laden with gold, and then eventually forgotten by time, his rediscovery shocked the world. But his body, well, it was hiding some pretty terrible secrets. Section 1. Carter's destructive discovery, the 1920s investigation. Now, to understand why the mummy is in such incredibly fragile condition today, we really got to look back at the very first modern hands to touch this ancient king. Howard Carter discovered Tut's tomb in 1922. The contents, even though they were hastily ransacked in antiquity, were surprisingly complete. Actually, it remains the richest royal collection ever found. When Carter opened the first of 3 nested coffins, he found a shroud adorned with garlands of willow, olive leaves, wild celery, lotus petals, and cornflowers. That faded evidence is crucial because it tells us the burial likely happened in March or April. But when he finally reached the mummy itself, he ran into a massive problem. The ritual resins used by the ancient embalmers had hardened over the millennia. Tut was literally firmly cemented to the bottom of his solid gold coffin. Carter noted that no amount of legitimate force could move the remains. So what did he do? He turned to the extreme Egyptian heat. For several hours, Carter set the mummy outside in blazing sunshine that heated the whole thing to 149 degrees Fahrenheit. He was really hoping the intense heat would melt the resins, but as you might guess, absolutely nothing budged. And this brings us to a really stark contrast in archaeological methods. Carter reported, with almost chilling scientific detachment, that the consolidated material had to be literally chiseled away from beneath the limbs and trunk just to raise the king out. Carter's men actually removed the mummy's head and severed nearly every major joint to get him free. Compare that destructive, brute force treasure hunting to modern archaeology. Today, the focus is way less on the gold and much more on the fascinating details of life and death. Using non-invasive medical technology like computed tomography, CT scans, to create virtual bodies without ever lifting a scalpel, let alone a chisel. Let's trace exactly how this body has been scrutinized over time. So in 1922, as we just discussed, Carter discovers the tomb and drastically damages the remains in the process. Fast forward to 1968, more than 40 years later, and an anatomy professor x-rays the mummy. Now, this x-ray revealed a startling, honestly horrifying fact. Beneath the resin that cakes his chest, Tut's breastbone and front ribs are completely missing. Gone. This deepened the mystery immensely, which finally brings us to 2005, where Tut is selected as one of the very first mummies to ever undergo a full CT scan. Moving on to Section 2, a dynasty in turmoil, the lineage of the boy king. You might be wondering, why does this one teenage king matter so much in the grand scheme of things? Well, it's because his death was essentially the death rattle of a dynasty. The chain of succession leading up to Tut is, frankly, chaotic. His father or grandfather, Amenhotep III, ruled over a literal golden age for almost 4 decades. But his successor initiated one of the strangest periods in ancient Egyptian history. This new pharaoh promoted the worship of the Aten, the sun disk, changed his own name to Akhenaten, and uprooted the religious capital to a completely new city. After Akhenaten died, a mysterious ruler named Smenkhare appeared briefly and then exited without a trace. And then, a very young Tutankhaten took the throne. To put this into perspective, Ray Johnson, the director of the University of Chicago's Research Center in Luxor, describes Akhenaten's reign as a truly horrific time. Akhenaten shocked the entire country by attacking Amun, a major god, literally smashing his images and closing his temples. As Johnson puts it, and I love this quote, the ruling family was already coming to an end, and then Akhenaten went a little wacky. He deeply fractured the kingdom. So, the absolutely crucial takeaway here is that when the boy king took over, he inherited a massive mess to clean up. He changed his name to Tutankhamun, which translates to living image of Amun, and oversaw a massive restoration of the old ways. He actually managed to bring brief stability back to the empire, reigning for about 9 years. And then, he died unexpectedly, leaving a massive power vacuum. It's a sobering reminder of just how quickly historical stability can collapse, leaving behind a puzzle that has endured for millennia. Which brings us to Section 3, the high-tech resurrection, the 2005 CT scan. All right, let's jump right back to that stormy night in 2005. How on earth do you solve a 3,300-year-old murder mystery where the primary evidence has been literally chiseled apart and baked in the Egyptian sun? You bring in the heavy machinery. The team utilized a portable CT machine donated by the National Geographic Society and Siemens. This incredible machine scanned the mummy head to toe, creating 1,700 digital X-ray images in cross-section. Now, these aren't just flat pictures. Think of them like slices of bread that are stacked together to create a complete, three-dimensional virtual body. In the precision here, it is staggering. Tut's head alone was scanned in incredibly thin 0.62 millimeter slices to register the intricate structures of his skull and neck. To put that into perspective, that is less than the thickness of a credit card. The resulting image takes on an eerie, undeniable detail, giving forensics experts a level of data that was previously unimaginable to work with. But remember that angry wind and the swirling desert sand from our introduction? Well, it caused a major, major complication. Just as the scan was finally getting underway, the million-dollar scanner suddenly quit. Just stopped. Turns out, sand had managed to get into a cooler fan. As the high-tech machinery ground to a complete halt right there in the shadow of the ancient tombs, the tension in the air was palpable. A guard nervously joked, "Curse of the Pharaoh." It's just such a fascinating moment, right? You have cutting-edge modern science bumping right up against ancient, lingering superstitions. Fortunately, the scientific team was prepared for the worst. Substitute white plastic fans were brought in from a nearby store, and they worked well enough to finish the procedure. After verifying that absolutely no data had been lost, the technicians turned Tut over to the workmen. Less than 3 hours after he was removed from his coffin, the pharaoh was carried back to his tomb, resting in peace once again where those funerary priests had laid him so long ago. And finally, Section 4, Secrets of the Virtual Body, the Results. With the king safely back in his resting place, the real magic began inside the trailer. Processing those 1,700 slices of data revealed incredible secrets. Right there on the computer screen, a gray head took shape from a scattering of pixels. The technicians spun and tilted it in every single direction. The neck vertebrae appeared as clearly as if you were looking at them in a medical anatomy class. They got crystal clear views of the rib cage and a flawless transection of the skull. Zahi Hawass, the Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, smiled and was visibly relieved. He actually admitted he hadn't slept at all the night before out of sheer worry. But seeing these images, he knew the operation was a resounding success. As the team finally packed up, left the trailer, and descended the metal stairs back to the sandy ground, something really incredible happened. The fierce winter wind that had been whipping up those ghostly dust devils all afternoon had finally stopped. The winter air lay cold and still, just like death itself in this valley of the departed. And as they looked up, right above the entrance to Tut's tomb, stood Orion. This is the constellation that the ancient Egyptians knew as the soul of Osiris, the god of the afterlife. It was almost as if the ancient world was quietly watching over the boy king, satisfied that his secrets were finally being treated with the clinical respect of modern science instead of the destructive force of the past. So let's move to our final thought. The Egyptian Mummy Project has recorded almost 600 mummies so far, and that number is still counting. Tut was just one of the very first to be scanned, in death as in life, moving regally ahead of his countrymen. But it leaves us with a pretty profound question. As this incredible technology allows us to build virtual bodies out of ancient dust, preserving the past without destroying it like Carter did, what other lost secrets of history are just waiting to be scanned? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating intersection of history and science with me. Keep wondering, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.